in the next administration, then what you could expect is that they would simply give real IDs to these folks. Right. The other thing that I hear is passports. Well, isn't this just a passport? No, it's not just a passport, because a passport is an external passport, right? It's to get you out of the country and into the country. That's all it's for. And what they're creating here is an internal passport that you won't be able to buy or sell or, maybe go to concerts or wherever it is that you have to show an ID. If you don't have the real ID, eventually you probably won't be able to do anything. And like I said, they'll be able to know everywhere you are, everything you're purchasing, and they'll be able to control it.
The video here was posted a week ago of someone saying what happens when you travel without your real ID or your passport, which you need. First off, it's weird. I've never seen that an airport looks like they're implementing it, scanning your hands for some reasons. But this person got moved to a different line for people who didn't have the real ID. Again, didn't have their passport. They had to go through additional screening. Their hands were wiped down with a wand and then scanned for whatever material could be on it. And they were given a paper as to what to do and how to get your real ID to be able to travel in the United States. Welcome, dear friends, to TIBP Media. What is the truth about the 2025 to 2030 Global Reset Plan? This is very strange, dear friends. Have you ever heard about the Club of Rome? Globalist Club of Rome pushes plan to control food, travel, and property for climate change. They are planning a tyrannical move, global control by 2030. Article 2030, I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. But this is something deeper and prophetic. Kindly like and share this important prophecy update. LifeSiteNews.com says, Globalist Club of Rome pushes plan to control food, travel, and property for climate change. A new task force backed by the United Nations, European Environment Agency, Hot or Cool Institute, and the Club of Rome seeks radical limits on meat consumption, cars, and ownership. The Club of Rome and the Hot or Cool Institute launched the Materials and Consumption Task Force that will give policy recommendation that, if implemented, would restrict your ability to decide how you travel, what you eat, and how you live your life, all in the name of sustainability and the global economic system. Launched on May 23, 2025, the task force will begin producing guidelines that will serve as a critical resource for policymakers, businesses, and civil society, providing an in-depth analysis of materials and consumption and offering practical solutions for a more resource-secure future, according to the Club of Rome press release. The task force recognized that materials and consumptions lie at the heart of many interconnected crises, from the escalating demand for critical minerals to the impact of supply chains on climate change. And social inequalities. Addressing these issues is essential to building a sustainable and resilient future. Dear friends, do you trust them? Do you trust this plan? 2025 to 2030 global control. Combining these lengthy reports, we see that the goal of them is to micromanage nearly every aspect of our lives by restricting what we are allowed to consume, all under the guise of saving the planet. All three reports says that society needs to move toward a circular economy in which you own nothing and rent everything.
Collapse liberal democracy and replace it with global technocracy.
This is a coup. They're saying we can control with rules. We don't need currency anymore.
It's like an inverted prison. You are supposedly free to roam about, but everything you want to access is behind lock and key.
The potential for social control is gigantic and potentially irreversible.
I think what we're dealing with here is actually a global war on agriculture.
When you look at how many farms are selling up, we're walking into food shortages.
If I can switch everybody from real food to pharma food, then 100% of the agriculture industry can go through my publicly traded stocks, and I have complete control.
Dear friends, would you trust their coming controlling system? LifeSiteNews.com is the Trump admin building a digital control grid that could lead to a super surveillance state. Policies under Trump have advanced biometric ID, digital currency, AI oversight, and surveillance tech, laying the groundwork for the centralized digital control. A digital control grid is an electronic network of digital telecommunication and information systems that allows individuals to be surveilled, tracked, and made subject to invasive controls applied to their financial transactions and resource use, such as electricity, food, water, transportation, compromising, if not ending, all human rights and liberties.
This is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. But it's far more than that. It's a blueprint. It is the action plan.
All life on Earth is going to be radically changed.
Everything will be monitored. The environmental consequences of every human action.
The general population cannot fathom the psychopathy of the vision that they're facing.
Once the digital ID is in place, it's game over for humanity.
So, dear friends, you have a globalist club of Rome and you have the WEF. Would restrict your ability to decide how you travel, what you eat, and how you live your life. And then you have Trump's building a super surveillance state. Dearest friends, the image of the beast for global control and persecution is here.
It's going to have to change. How do we change it? The first thing the Club of Rome has done, which is really wonderful, has been to set up a materials and consumption task force. It draws on the experience of so many of the members of the Club of Rome and some members of the International Resources Panel that have been working on issues of material to ask the question, how do we face this issue? How do we introduce the idea of governance for materials and resources? Because so far, it's not included in the global governance architecture. What sort of targets do we need? Can we think of other forms like substitution? Can we think of new materials that will perform the same role now? What this is pointing at is there's a consensus that change is inevitable and we need a planned transition instead of a chaotic transition.
Satan will accomplish his end game, a world without the law of God, the 10 Commandments of God, through the papal Antichrist who is really pulling the strings. He will persecute people that will still abide with the 10 Commandments of God. And Revelation 13 verse 15 will come into fruition. The majority will not able to discern what is reality, for they have not fortified their minds with the Word of God. The Great Reset report reveals globalist climate organization's goal to ban meat, dairy, and private vehicles in 14 U.S. cities by 2030. An exclusive report revealed that the global ringmasters and the Democrat allies are embarking on an expedited market scheme to ensure you will have no choice but to enjoy bugs and public transportation in less than a decade. The priority of the Vatican is to re-engineer society into one global utopian society founded on socialism. It believes that a peaceful society free from hate, turmoil, and sadness can be achieved only on a global scale through socialism. This is his message, but what is actually being formed is a global godless dystopia built on terror, lawlessness, and anarchy. This is all the cause of Christ becoming the throne in the lives, hearts, and minds of the people. This world is in the state it's in because they have forsaken Christ. And instead of addressing the spiritual problems that humanity is facing, which is sin, is pushing a political agenda than enforcing the mark of the beast, Sunday worship. It is a global agenda designed to take over the world. Globalism will eventually prepare the pathway that will usher the kingdom of the Antichrist. The implementation of the nefarious laws that will contradict God's laws will be the crowning act of the Antichrist's new world order. Will Trump's spy machine be used in enforcing the mark of the beast? Here is the prophecy update that you should know. Revelation 13 verse 7. It was given power to wage war against God's people and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. Headlines: President Trump is using his relationship with software company Palantir to create a nationwide surveillance database on American citizens. Since Donald Trump was re-elected last November, a software company called Palantir has come up in the conversation over and over. Back in the early days of the pandemic, Palantir was tasked by Trump to create a tracking database of Americans who have taken the C-19 vax. We were promised a new golden age of America, but instead we are getting something quite different. A few weeks ago, the Real ID requirements became law in America. Now Trump has tasked Palantir with taking separate databases containing information on American citizens and using their Foundry software to compile it into one big beautiful database. In short, the very person we elected to keep us safe from this sort of thing is the very person who is forcing it on us. Headlines: Trump appears to be building an unprecedented spy machine that could track Americans. A new report shines light on contracts with tech company Palantir, which could create data profiles of Americans to surveil and harass them. The New York Times has a new report on the administration awarding contracts to the controversial tech company Palantir, which is apparently helping Trump develop a database of Americans' private information scraped from various government agencies that could theoretically be used to track and persecute. Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans. The Trump administration has expanded Palantir's work with the government, spreading the company's technology, which could easily merge data on Americans throughout agencies. May 30, 2025. Economic Times says Palantir to create vast federal data platform tying together millions and millions of Americans' private records, stock jumps. Our reality must not be based on what we see. Our reality must be based on what God said, and God will provide, and God will secure, and Jesus will in the end be victorious. Well, the question is, are you on the Lord's side? The question is, are you walking in His righteousness? If yes, kindly type in the comment section, Jesus is my righteousness. Kindly share, dear friends, this important prophecy update to all. Sharing the Word of God is key. Sharing is caring for others. God bless your ministry.